guess I'm starting this off, huh?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. All right. Erik, today we're going to talk a little bit about vulnerability and why is vulnerability so hard? So let's just start first off by saying how easy it is to just talk on a surface level, right? Like I come up and say, hey, Erik, how was your day? How are you going to respond?
Fine.
Right? The fine.
I'm practicing being a teenager. How am I doing?
You're doing
I'm regressing
great.
backwards.
I think it might have been more like, fine, if you're a teenager. But
there you go. I need
here
some
we
work.
are.
That needs a little bit of work. Yeah.
So it's really easy to give an automatic response. Fine, I'm fine. But it's harder to go deeper. It's harder to actually be vulnerable. Right?
Right. Well, we're worried how the other person's going to receive that. Are they going to perceive it as a sign of weakness? Or are they going to think less of us? Are they going to be dismissive? I think a lot of us worry about that.
Yeah.
That they could possibly be dismissive, and then we feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
Like not validated at all. And why did I share that? And then that starts you questioning yourself. And then you're like, well, maybe I shouldn't react that way to this situation. And internally, emotionally, we start backpedaling from our true self.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing you just said there was the fear of oversharing. That I think is so real, right? In a moment where you're like, oh, is this that moment where I'm going to actually put myself out there and say, yeah, actually today's been really hard.
But oversharing, I think, is a relative term too, because depending on the listener, I could feel like, wow, I overshared. Or I could feel like, gosh, they get me. That was spot on. I didn't overshare at all. And it could be the same thing that I shared, but I could feel two different ways if I don't have a strong sense of self, an internal locus of control, and depending on the response of the listener.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how do you determine when you're going to share and when you're not, when you're going to go deeper? How do you decide that in the moment?
Oh, that's a big, you're asking the big questions, Jen.
Yeah. I mean, we might as well jump right in, right? Here we are.
I'm a very intuitive person. So my Myers-Briggs, my N for intuition, it's off the charts. And so I just get this gut feeling. And social scientists say that when we get that gut feeling, that's not like just off the cuff, that our brains are taking in data, that person's expressions, their body language, their tone of voice, the things they say. Our brain is taking all that in so fast and spitting out, making literally millions of calculations and spitting out a gut feeling. In fact, Malcolm Gladwell wrote about that in his book, Blink. And he said that sometimes the gut intuition usually is more correct than it is endlessly going over every detail. And he said the people, and he gave all these examples in his book, Blink. And he said the people that make a quick decision like that, it's not haphazard at all. That your brain, in fact, is doing all that at the subconscious level. So anyway, to answer your question, I think when I'm with somebody, my brain is doing all these calculations, and I've learned to know myself and know say, hey, that's how my brain works. So I'm going to honor that. I'm going to trust that. And then I think you learn from experiences. And I think that gets factored into the hardwire of your brain. So then the next time or 5 years from now, when my brain's making all those calculations, it's factoring in, oh, I kind of overshared with that person, or I kind of held back with that one. It might have gone better if I didn't hold back. And all that's factored in. And the brain is just fine-tuning and fine-tuning and fine-tuning the older, grayer, and wiser we get.
Well, I think you make such a great point, too, is that sometimes our experiences, well, I shouldn't even say sometimes, all the time, our experiences are part of that equation. and whether or not we make that decision or we have that gut feeling like, okay, this is safe to share, or maybe this isn't that time to do that. And sometimes that's based on our own trauma, right? Our own experiences
Right.
from the past where maybe we did share or we've had an experience that it didn't work the way that we had wanted it to. And our brains actually are kind of like on overdrive, analyzing that. And maybe we get stuck in that like paralysis analysis.
Right.
And then we don't share either. One thing I think is really interesting is that when we are making the choice to be vulnerable, our brains actually interpret that on the same like neural pathways as physical pain because it's a risk.
Right.
And so sometimes our brains are firing and saying, alert, alert, don't do it, don't do it. But what you're saying is that that self-awareness really brings us to a place where we can make a conscious choice of whether or not we'll be vulnerable or not.
Right. I think it's being at ease with ourselves and tapping into who we actually are. Then we're less blown and tossed by other people and their reactions.
Yeah.
So I gave a long philosophical answer. Give us a practical, okay, I'm trying to assess, do I overshare or not? Give us a practical, maybe example of somebody oversharing. What an overshare would look like.
Yeah. The thing that comes to mind, we've always, I think of times when I have met someone that maybe I don't know at all, right? This isn't somebody who I have a relationship with. It's like, hi, I'm Jen. Hi, I'm Sally, or whoever it is. And immediately they jump right into really deep places. It usually is because I mentioned that I'm a therapist, right?
Oh,
Have you had that experience, Eric?
I have.
You mentioned that in there.
Jen,
Boom.
I know not only have had that experience, I've had it on an airplane.
Oh, yes. So you had an
I could
extended
not
period of time
get
in that
away.
experience.
And I got
Yeah.
0 pages read of my book.
Yeah, right?
I struggle with boundaries sometimes and just like, I don't know, hurting people's feelings.
Yeah.
I take responsibility for other people. That's why I made a career to be vulnerable. That's why I made a career out of this. I think things at a subconscious level operate. And as a young person, I was like, wow, I can get paid for this.
Right.
And then you get into it and then you realize, oh gosh, that's not so good. Like that's not what being a therapist is at all. But yeah, I've had that experience happen where you're a captive audience.
Yes.
And the person is oversharing. They're not, I think one aspect of that, when I think of situations like that, is they don't pick up on verbal cues.
Yeah.
Verbal and nonverbal, mostly nonverbal cues.
Yeah.
They don't pick, when I pick up my Kindle or my phone, that's the signal to you.
I'm not fully paying attention.
I'm backing out of this conversation very slowly.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. So there's that side of oversharing, right? But then there's also just the side of us choosing to share and choosing to go deeper, right? That's
Right.
what choosing to be vulnerable. And it's got risk and it's got emotional exposure. When you put those two things together, risk and emotional exposure, it kind of leads me to the question of like, why would I want to do that again? What is the value?
Right. What's the ROI?
Yeah.
The return on that? That's an investment.
Yes.
Putting a piece of yourself out there.
So what is it? Why do we do this?
Connection. That's how connection is forged. Connection is not forged by exchanging facts.
Yeah.
That's safe. It's comfortable for most people. You sit down. It's a connection of sorts. It breaks the ice. You sit down on the airplane next to somebody. Oh, are you going home or, leaving home? Oh, what do you like about Baltimore or whatever they're from, or things that you just, chit-chatting about incidental details. That is a certain level of connection, but it's not a deep level.
Yeah.
And I think that's socially appropriate.
Yeah.
But the problem is most people stay there. They don't, in their closer relationships, get to that place of sharing actual emotions.
Mm-hmm. Again, because that's risky.
Right.
It leaves us feeling a bit exposed. But that's where deep connection comes. And, I love Brene Brown. I mean, we got to give a shout out, right? Whenever you're talking about vulnerability.
Renee, who?
Said no one ever, right?
Correct. Fair enough.
But she talks about how it's a risk, right? It is a risk to put yourself out there because there's an element that there's going to be potentially shame. If I say, this is how I'm feeling and I own that, then if the other person doesn't acknowledge that and they're just like, yeah, I'm going to pick up my phone.
Right.
Ooh, too deep. I can't go there.
Right.
Then we internalize that, right, as shame. So, but yet it also is the foundation for all connection and empathy.
Right. I love her language where she talks about looking at how we show up, because there's this whole thing that's ourself. And so there's like the parts above the waterline that are ourself, that are the safe parts. And then there's all this deeper stuff. The whole circle's us. And that language, how we show up, it's like, am I bringing that whole circle, all of who I am I showing up with that? And it doesn't mean we verbalize all that all at once or, spill it out on somebody else, but we can still show up with that whole self and then selectively know how to share some of the deeper parts or test the waters. Like that's what I tend to do, is throw something out there and see how they respond. And just a little bit. I don't spill the whole tea, hopefully not overshare, but just put a little bit out there.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not able, they're not capable. They don't have those emotional skills of engaging with that and being present to that part of myself. Or maybe they just don't want to. Maybe they're just the person on the airplane next to me, and maybe they aren't an oversharer and they just want a cordial, pleasant conversation. Well, that would be appropriate. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I think some people overshare too because they're trying to get something. Like when we're trying to get validation or comfort, what else comes to mind? Things we could try to get that might cause us to overshare.
Right. Just reinforcement. I know I usually want that, right? You see it from my perspective, right? Yeah, right? Agree with me.
Right.
Yeah.
That was, what do you think? That was a reasonable response, right?
Yes. Yeah. And then when we choose to actually get vulnerable, we can walk away from an interaction with someone. And I always like to use this terminology. It's like a sparkling moment. Like I'm going to remember that moment where we connected on a totally different level. We connected.
Right.
And I feel seen, I feel heard, and I feel like we connected. And we have these interactions with people all day long, from start to finish in the day. We have these interactions. But generally, we don't walk away from them feeling like we had a sparkling moment. It's only when we really decide to be vulnerable.
Right.
I'll give an example. This past fall, my son played fall ball. And let me tell you, I hate being in the stands during practice. I was like, I don't want to connect. I've had a long day. I don't really want to talk to anyone. I just kind of want to sit there and watch him play, right?
Right.
But this past fall, there was a group of moms, and we were all there, and I thought, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to be vulnerable, and I'm going to talk to some of these folks. And we started talking. We started connecting about different things, like parenting is hard. That's going to be a whole nother podcast, right?
Yes, it is.
But like in these things that we started talking about, like really deeper things. And it became our therapy. I don't think that my son cares about fall ball at all. But the parents were all like, you all have to play from now on because we want to be in the stands and we want to connect. And we were having sparkling moments connecting with each other, talking about our marriages, talking about our parenting, talking about challenges at work and things like that. And we walked away feeling seen
Mm,
at the end of the day,
right.
which was incredible. Instead of like the usual, right? Like, oh, the weather, we talked about that.
So why do you think with that group of women that happened with that group at that place at that time, and that doesn't always happen? But why then and there?
I think it was an intentional willingness to take a risk.
What do you remember? What was the risk that kind of broke the ice?
Yeah. I think it started with us kind of talking about some of the things that were happening during practice with like coaching and different coaching styles and things like that. And usually I just be like, yeah, let the coach do what they're doing. But then we started talking about it and how we can make it better and how we could agree on that. So I think it was an intentional willingness
Right.
to step into a conversation about what was happening right in front of us.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very insightful. People's willingness to step in. As you're talking, it kind of brings me back to a spiritual group I was in college that I led at my house, and it was a group of all guys, like 7 or 8 guys. And the first meeting, we all kind of knew each other to a degree, and there was one new guy that we didn't know that just showed up. And we're going around like talking, saying our name and, what we're hoping to get out of doing this. And we come to David, and David says, well, I just got out of Shepherd Pratt psychiatric unit for drug use. And this is part of my recovery is to do this. Well, you talk about like making it okay to have the whole room relaxed and people opened up and thought like, well, whatever I'm going through, I didn't just, get out of rehab and I'm not in recovery. Like David made it okay for every guy in that room to go to a deeper level. And they did. And they did. And a bunch of them were, when I got married in 1989, they were groomsmen in my wedding from that group. That's how close we got.
Yeah. So incredible when we intentionally step in and are willing to be honest with the challenges that we're facing, how we're feeling in a moment, just to be able to step into that and give other people permission, like you're saying, to do the same.
What work do you think it takes on a person's part to be that person who can take that risk to like step in, as you put it? Is that I have another example of somebody who did that with me and a friendship that ensued, but I want to hear your insights on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one, it takes a little bit of resilience to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take the risk. And if it doesn't work out the way that I am hoping for, I'm not going to just say, well, I'm never doing that again. Right. I'm going to, a little bit of resilience to be willing to try again.
Right. So now we're weaving in other big concepts that relate to vulnerability.
Yeah.
The ability to be resilient or to bounce back, to withstand rejection and not be thrown off balance. That's resilience.
Yes. Yeah.
So you think that's key. The person that, and how would you say, what's the short version of how does somebody even begin to develop resilience?
Such a good question. I think that
I ask you the hard questions
I know, right, Erik? I
before
like
you
that's
ask
a
me, then I buy myself time. I'm just being vulnerable right now.
I have no idea.
That's my playbook. I just gave you my
question.
playbook.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What
I
do
have
you
an
think?
answer.
Yeah.
I think people that build resilience, they tap in to their own emotions, their own storyline, and they identify broken parts of themselves
Yeah.
that they want to grow in and move toward healing, and contrasted with the person who projects. And when something happens, they they shame the other person. They're mean. They did this. And you've probably dealt with people in therapy like that all the
Sure.
time, who come in and you're a sounding board for them to complain about how bad everybody else is
Mm-hmm.
in their life.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
Yeah.
people who build resilience are willing to say, all right, they were that way, whatever, that's out of my control. But what's happening inside of me? How
Mm-hmm.
do I tend to me? What are the parts inside that need something emotionally? And they learn to see it as an opportunity to give something to those parts of themselves, that rather than something was taken away because somebody was unkind. They're like, wow, this incident rose something to the surface, gave me awareness of a part of me that was activated or just exists, a part of me that exists that needs attention.
Mm-hmm. I
Like,
love that.
like
That
I
is good.
need, maybe I need affirmation. That person didn't give it to me. A person building resilience says, okay, well, where am I going to get that? Well, I'm that person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give that affirmation or whatever it is I'm looking for. I'm going to give that to me. And when we learn to do things like that, have a healthy relationship with ourselves, I think it makes us a lot more resilient.
Mm-hmm.
And then those risks that you're talking about to feel more manageable. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the whole world is not at stake
Mm-hmm.
here. It's like, okay, the risk, if the thing happens, I don't want to happen. It's not a statement on who I am as a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Is that one situation or even a string of situations is not determining my identity.
Right.
I'm determining my identity.
Right.
And so an interaction can go well, it cannot go well, but I'm still in charge of who I am and my identity.
Right. Like, so I remember when I was young, like 40 years ago, 45 years ago, I would not ask out a girl, express interest in a girl unless she expressed interest in me first, because to me, her response was a statement about my worth as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not taking that risk.
Right.
And I've noticed being single again the last 5 years that it's totally different, that I've done a lot of work in those decades. And that type of response doesn't have the same power that it used to have because I've built resilience.
Yeah.
And so therefore I'm willing to take some of those relational risks.
Right. Right.
So the guy took a relational risk with me. It was interesting. I was on a guy's ski trip to Breckenridge, Colorado. A group of guys, 5 of us, were going in the restaurant, and this man and his wife are behind us. And I held the door. The wife was coming through first, and I held the door open, and the husband, in the warmest of voices, goes, "Wow, I can tell you are a true gentleman." And that was a small risk to say, name something. It's kind of personal.
Yeah.
He's speaking to who I am as I see this inside of you at a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
So we at my party, and he and his wife we're all being weighed to be seated, and we're having this great conversation. And it turns out he lives in Sarasota, Florida, 20 minutes from where I live.
Oh, wow.
In that area. And so we're talking, then they get sat right behind us. So now, partway through the dinner, and my chair was closest to him, he grabs my attention. This was the big relational risk.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, hey, I just wanted to tell you, I really see you're a real leader, and these guys really look up to you.
Wow.
And wow, congrats on like investing in all these guys. They really look up to you. And I thought, what a risk.
Yeah.
Like that brought it to a whole deeper level. Then we ended up on the same flight from Denver to Sarasota, right across the aisle. There's assigned seats now on Southwest.
Right.
Our seats were right across from each other. And the guy behind him lives near us too. And so now the three of us are friends, all because he took a couple of steps of vulnerability and took it to a deeper level. And now we've gone out twice there and have two new friends, all because, my hat's off to him. Like I matched that. I entered in, but he did the heavy lifting.
Yeah. You had sparkling moments that have now led to connection.
Right.
That's amazing.
How did you get the phrase sparkling moment? I love that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Well, actually, I am stealing it from narrative therapy because narrative therapy says that we have these like sparkling moments. But it was one of those things in grad school when I read about it and I was like, oh, I want to have sparkling. I want to go deeper and have sparkling moments.
That had to be a woman who like came up with that. When I hear sparkling, I think like sparkle, like sequins on a dress.
Everything's better with sparkles, Erik.
Exactly. Right. Hey, I like it. That's a great thing.
Listen, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about relationships, not just like meeting strangers or our friends and connections, but what does vulnerability do for our deepest relationships, like our spouse, our partners, right? Our romantic relationships. Because in therapy, I see a lot of people who are coming in and they're coming in for marriage counseling and they aren't vulnerable with each other. It's amazing. They can live together for 30 years, but yet they're not really practicing being vulnerable with each other. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're transitioning it to a deeper level. Like when I mentioned facts in the beginning, that can be a point of connection.
Yeah.
Oh, you're from Maryland. I'm from Maryland. Oh, you like crabs. I like crabs, whatever. Then emotions are a deeper level, but you've brought it to the even deeper level of what are my emotions I'm experiencing in this relationship. And that's the place where many people will talk about the emotions they felt during how was your day, dear? Oh yeah, it was lousy. This happened and this person did, and I feel mad, but they won't share how they are experiencing each other.
Yes.
So like, I think of a time I was in a relationship and over a couple of days of traveling, I felt kind of disconnected. Like they're on flights and whatever, planes, trains, and automobiles. There wasn't like the usual amount of touch, conversation. And so I think it's Gottman calls it a bid for connection, right?
Yes. So
I made a bid for connection. I said, I miss you. I'm feeling a little bit disconnected, and I want to feel connected to you. And that particular woman, she couldn't go there, and she met that bid for connection with anger, and like I was demanding something when I was just sharing how I felt inside and what I wanted, but through the stories we tell each other, which I know that's another podcast.
Yeah.
She heard something completely different.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned just saying, I feel disconnected. John and I say that to each other all the time. Hey, I don't know what's going on right now. Like we've had like a really busy couple of days. I just want to let you know that I'm feeling disconnected. And it's a bid for connection.
Right.
Hey, like how can I make you feel seen? How can I come back to the table and let you know that even though there's a million things going on and we are parenting and we're moving fast and we're doing it, but we're going to slow down enough to have some sparkling moments where we just walk away feeling like we had some connection.
I love how that phrase sounds. There's not a hint of judgment in it. There's not a hint of blame.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we're afraid of vulnerability, it's so much easier, instead of saying, I feel disconnected, I miss you, let's get together, with excitement or anticipation.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much easier to say, you've been really cold the last 2 days. What's going on?
I don't feel like you're spending enough time paying attention to me.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That never goes well.
No, it's a skill.
Yeah.
To know how to be vulnerable, make a bid for connection, communicate our emotions. It's a skill most people don't learn.
Mm-hmm.
And it affects vulnerability, and it affects connection.
Yeah. And to be honest, right, sometimes I need a couple bids before I realize that we're bidding.
You get in a bidding war.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Like, hey, did you notice that I came up and put my arm around you while you were cooking dinner? And I'm like, no, because I was doing 3 things at once, right?
Right.
Oh, wow. And then he asked, did you notice? I'm like, oh, now I can step back. Like, oh yeah, I did see all of those things. So here I am feeling disconnected, where you're putting out these bids and I'm knocking them down, and so we don't do it perfectly. But the vulnerability piece is being able to come back to the table and say, oh, wow, I do see what you were doing.
Right.
And I missed it because I was busy or I wasn't paying attention. And I can only imagine how it felt on your side to put the bid out there and me not respond. I'm so sorry.
It takes a lot of work to get to that point of responding non-defensively and empathetically.
Yes.
Because in most of us, there is shame, embarrassment, shame attached with, oh, I did something wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you're right, none of us want to be like, oh, wow, yeah, I was completely oblivious in that moment, right? We don't want to admit that we haven't done it perfectly. That's what vulnerability is about.
And I think that's where vulnerability in a relationship that builds upon itself builds a reservoir of safety.
Yes.
Where it's safe to not be perfect. Okay, I missed your bids for connection. It's safe to admit that, because you know the other person that's all they're looking for is self-awareness and ownership. They're not looking for you to never make that mistake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it is very vulnerable in that moment, but I think it's built upon a whole history of non-judgmentalism in a relationship, acceptance of each other, vulnerability playing out over time. Mm-hmm. And I also think the person, as you're talking about you and John, the person in the situation who made the bid and it wasn't reciprocated or received, I think that takes a grounded person who's others aware, not just self-aware, but others aware. They're grounded and they're resilient to not have a knee-jerk reaction and be triggered in some way, but to say, you know what, there are multiple reasons why he or she may not have responded to my bid for connection. Mm-hmm. It could be as simple as what you said. You're doing 3 things at once. That's an entirely different reason than they either don't care or they're putting up emotional walls or they're not capable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like those are deeper reasons. Yeah. Distracted or busy is like a very innocent, benign reason, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And a person that's done the work on themselves, they can discern that there's multiple possibilities instead of just, letting a certain narrative play out. Yeah. That's played out in their mind because of their unresolved issues.
Yeah. Yeah. It also reminds me of being able to identify where I know that I need help and being able to say it out loud, because I can oftentimes identify things in my head really, really well, but they don't actually come out of my mouth so that anyone around me knows what I need. right? So to be able to say that and say, hey, I need you to relentlessly pursue me because right now I'm stressed. I'm really probably not on the top of my game of being able to recognize even what my own needs are. So if you bid, make sure you do it a couple times because I need you to be relentless in that. And we take turns, right? We take turns with being able to identify that so that then, when those situations happen, we can come back to the table and be like, oh, you know what? She told me that she was stressed right now. So I'm going to give lots more grace and I'm going to continue to make more bids until she sees it.
Right. What you did there is you gave context.
Mm-hmm.
You did what mature people do. You thought of it's others' awareness again. If I were him, you didn't say that,
Right.
but that's like kind of what was in your mind. If I kind of just take a stab at that, if I were him, I would appreciate knowing like I'm not on my A game right now.
Yeah.
Don't take it personally. If et cetera, just stick with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like you've just made it easy for that other person to engage in bids for connection.
Right. And also, I know the scripts that he has of that could be interpreted as rejection.
Right.
And so I wouldn't want him to think that because something that's going on with me is happening and I'm in the throes of that he would walk away feeling like I'm rejecting him. So giving him that heads up, knowing who he is. And that only comes from being willing to be vulnerable. I'm saying like, hey, I felt rejected when, right?
Right.
I love one of the key elements is being able to identify, right, what our emotion is and then communicate it out.
Right. One of the, like you ask about relationships, how vulnerability shows up. One of the things that I love in a relationship is when one person or the other says, when you did X, Y, Z, or you looked at me that way, like it's not always a negative thing. We talk about vulnerability like it's on the negative things, but I think in the positive, I just want to tell you when we were at this event or something, yesterday and you looked at me a certain way, here's what it did to me inside. It said, you're special. I care about you. And I felt such a connection, even though there were no words. Like that's a vulnerable thing to say. And I think those things in a relationship go a very, very long way. But they take noticing, they take intentionality, and they take self-awareness. Yeah. Being aware when something happens, what's the internal impact on me? And the good things, like receiving those good things, letting ourselves feel the good emotions. And that's a whole other can of worms, right? Why we don't do that. And then relationship, we're guarded because there's something else going on where it's not safe to feel all the good stuff, like usually trauma-based. Yeah. So then the relationship doesn't soften and deepen. And you think about a soil where it hasn't rained in months and how hard that ground is versus like, you go hiking on the trail after a huge rainstorm and the ground is soft everywhere, and I think that relationships can be that way because of the stuff that the posture that we bring into it.
All right. So I wouldn't even be able to recap all the things that we've talked about here necessarily because we have gone through, we could talk all day, Erik.
We could, Jen, you and I, we could.
Just talk all day about vulnerability and what it is and why it's important and why we resist it and what the benefits are if we actually lean into that. So is there any final, like if there was like one, you were just making a synopsis of why we care, why we want to do this? Why do we want to be vulnerable?
So, I mean, you might make friends on airplanes.
Of course. I mean, that's number one.
You might make friends at fall ball.
Yes.
The relationships you already have will be deeper and more gratifying. And here's a deep one. I think that just living life, going about your day, there's a more of an ease internally when it's about embracing all of our story.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we feel the feelings and we do the work that it takes to be there's prerequisites to being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
The prerequisites, self-awareness, letting ourselves feel feelings, basically knowing ourselves. Most people don't know themselves that well. And I found that the more I step into that, I'm like, I like knowing myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's enjoyable, and it gives me a sense of peace and ease.
Mm-hmm.
And I think getting to live with that's all part of vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah.
It reduces anxiety internally and increases a sense of peace.
Yeah.
I think. What do you think?
I agree. And the thing that comes to mind, it might sound cliche, but it's like you're living in bright colors.
Yes. Yes.
Because my interactions aren't just, oh, yeah, how's the weather? Good. Yeah, okay, good. It's those moments that I walk away because of our vulnerability and our connection, and I feel more alive.
Yes. That's the words I was searching for. You said it. I feel more alive.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable, you get to feel more alive.
Yeah. I love it.
I know. So thank you for taking the journey with us, everybody, from baseball fields in the fall to airplanes to restaurants to the recesses of our own heart and relationships. This has been great.
Yeah. Just want to encourage you. Step into some sparkling moments. Give it a try. Put a little risk out there and see how it goes.
I'm going to go get some sparkles, Jen.
Okay.
All right.
Me too.
Well, we've come to the conclusion of another podcast, and we're grateful that you've spent this time with us. We would love the privilege of being there for you for any need that you have in your life. So please look us up at safeharbourbc.com or 1-800-305-2089.